Authenticity is invaluable. Originality is non-existent. That was said by Jim Jarmusch. In case you're wondering who that is, he was the director of Ghost Dog and The Way of the Samurai. He got a lot of his inspiration from Japan, so he knew a little something about not being original. Now, as a writing coach, a lot of my clients come to me worried that their idea is not original enough. They're worried it's been written about before, and they're worried it's been written about a whole lot better. And I'm going to put your mind to rest right now if you're worried about whether or not your idea is original. It's not. I guarantee your idea is not original. And here's why. Human beings are mimics. We live in societies or packs or herds or whatever you want to call a bunch of human beings, and we mimic each other. And this is how we learn. In fact, our entire childhood is based around the system of this is how we learn. First the teacher does it, and then we do it. And this is how we come to things like the arts, mathematics, science, music, or pretty much anything else. And once we learn all we can about a topic, then we bring something new to it. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and it's not original. Still don't believe me? Well, that's okay. I thought that might happen. That's why I'm going to talk about one of my favorite authors today. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know I have a lot of favorite authors. So which one are we going to be talking about today? Well, the one we're going to be talking about is Oscar Wilde. He wrote a book, well, really a novella, in 1890 called The Picture of Dorian Gray. And in case you haven't read the story, it's basically about a wealthy young man who gets a painting, and now when this young man commits transgressions, instead of it wearing on his life and his conscience, he's able to go about his life and his conscience because the picture holds all his sins, and he doesn't have to worry about any consequences. It was a really good book, and a lot of people really loved it. However, it wasn't the first book on the topic. And obviously, if I was going to go over every book on a haunted painting or a painting that did something so its owner could do something else, then we'd be here all day. But I'm just going to talk about the books that came out in the 1800s, prior to this book, that were very similar. We'll start with Charles Maturin. He had a similar painting in his great work, Melmoth the Wanderer. That came out in 1820. So, decades before Oscar Wilde's book. Next, we have the portrait. Portrait was in 1835. Next, we have 1826, Vivian Grey by Benjamin Disraeli. Now, Benjamin Disraeli is probably a name you've heard of, even if you've never read any of his books. And as you'll notice, Vivian Grey sounds a whole lot like Dorian Gray. So not only did he kind of borrow the concept here, he also kind of borrowed the name. Okay, so now we have the portrait, 1835. Nikolai Gogol wrote that. And again, we had a haunted painting that affected the life of its owner. Now, of course, these people were big names in their day. Oscar Wilde soon grew to be bigger. But we're about to look at an author superstar in his own time, and that was Nathaniel Hawthorne. He wrote a book called The Scarlet Letter. But before that, he also wrote a book called The Prophetic Pictures, 1851. And you would think that if a superstar like Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a book like this, that would be the be-all and end-all book like this. But it wasn't. Because in 1868, Henry James wrote The Story of a Masterpiece. Henry James, you might recognize the name, wrote Turn of the Screw, which has been made into all kinds of movies, Twilight Zone episodes, and you name it, it's been made from Turn of the Screw. Because Henry James was a superstar writer too. And he had a very bizarre way of looking at the world, which of course added to his great insight into a book like this. So far, we've seen 5 books published decades before Oscar Wilde's book, The Picture of Dorian Gray. And some of them were even published by superstar authors. And yet, that didn't deter Oscar Wilde from publishing his picture of Dorian Gray in the slightest. And it didn't affect his book sales, didn't affect his reputation, and it just helped him in his career. So you see, even though that you can even though it has been written about before, you still want to write about it again, because you never know what's going to resonate with people. And just because there were 5 other books similar to his when he wrote his book, didn't mean that his book was any less popular. In fact, because it was authentically him, he was able to take the familiar and make it somewhat unfamiliar. Your readers are like that too. They're looking for your insight on a topic. They're looking for your take on a story. And it doesn't really matter if you write fiction or nonfiction. Your audience is waiting for you, so don't keep them in suspense. Write your book. And if you need help writing your book, feel free to download one of my workbooks on how to plan a book on your lunch hour. I have one for novelists and one for coaches and other experts, so you get to choose which one you want. See you later.